Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Job Search Live on Monday. Here I am, Career Sherpa, and I just wanted to say, hey, thanks for being here. And I want to get into what we're going to be talking about today. Before that, let me just make sure that I share the link with you today. Um, this is This is that's the link to yesterday's Summary Sunday, and it was called "Let's Talk About Fair Pay." And I think it's a long overdue conversation to talk about fair pay. Welcome everybody who is joining me today. I am Hannah Morgan. This is Job Search Live, and we are talking about Summary Sunday. And the link is right there in the comment. So you can follow along with some of the articles if you want to. You're more than welcome to. Um, Pay is a touchy subject. It always has been, but I really wanted to highlight this because as a woman, especially, we are in some serious danger of losing some of the strides we've made in income equivalency over the years. And I wanted to make sure that we all knew that this was going on. More women have left the workforce now than at any other time in history due to the pandemic. They became caretakers for their family, whether it was their immediate family or extended family. So two things that I mention in this, but the whole article is really fascinating based on a research that Indeed did. But over 58% of people who were polled said they never or rarely, oh, this is women, sorry. Oh no, here we go. 58% say they never or rarely negotiate their pay, and notably 15% of men say they always negotiate a new salary, and only 9% of women say they negotiate a new salary. So 15% of men are always negotiating, and 9% of women say they negotiate a salary. That's huge. Most people, more than half, will never negotiate their salary. Your work, and you know this when you were working, your work changed from year to year. The company may not have been able to afford any kind of a significant increase in salary. However, the work you did during that year changed. And I am pretty confident that most of you took on additional responsibilities. And if they were to hire somebody new and ask them to cover all of those responsibilities, they would have to pay that person more. So we have to start having these conversations. So that raises the issue. Okay, so you do find that you are not being paid what quote unquote fair value is. Only 23% discussed the fact they discovered they weren't being paid fairly with their managers. And only 12% went to human resources. 66% of men met with their managers to talk about pay, but only 43% of women met with their managers to talk about pay. We've got to fix this, because if we're not talking about pay, then we're not going to get paid what we're worth in across the board. Men and women, black and white, brown and whatever your color is. There are some serious discrepancies here. So we need to fix that. And the only way we're going to change that, because we can't make companies do stuff, the only way we can change that is by starting to have more conversations. And one of the things this study by Indeed found was that, sure, people are researching salaries. They're going to Indeed salary calculator and salary.com and payscale.com and glassdoor.com. And those are all great places to go, but that doesn't necessarily help you understand within your company what fair pay is. So it's not illegal for you to ask a coworker how much money they're making. Maybe you all say, hey, we're going to have a meeting. We're going to put our money, how much money we make on the board, and everyone will write down their number, and then we can come in and look at it. Whatever you want to do it, however you want to do that, so it's anonymous if you're working. Even having conversations with other job seekers, how much money did you make in your last job? You can even ask, if you're not comfortable, how much money did you make, to say, what do you see the going rate is for the kind of work we do? Love that question. You should be asking that question to anyone that you know that does the kind of work you do. What are you seeing the going rate is for the kind of work that we do? But I want you to go read that whole article by about fair pay on Indeed, because their research is really interesting, and I think that you might feel more motivated to go speak up about pay. Wanda, great to see you. Heidi, great to see you. Colleen, hello, hello. Great seeing you all here. And I'm noticing that you all are women. So it's really, really important that you go check out that article, because I don't want any of you to ever accept less, because if you accept less coming in the door, it's going to be that much harder to recoup what you may have lost over the years, because you may just get a small incremental cost of living adjustment versus a major increase in pay to bring you up to the level of some men who are not afraid to speak up and who are not afraid to negotiate. And negotiating is just a question, right? So they make you this lovely offer and you're actually quite happy with it. You can still say to them, I'm so excited about this job opportunity, but I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't ask, is this the best you can do? And then you know what you do? You shush, you don't say anything, and you let them answer that question and see what they say. Because if it's not their best offer, they may tell you, or they may not. So negotiate. It's just a question. The next article in this week's Summary Sunday was there's a couple of them that had to do with job search, how to get a job in 2021 if you are over 50. Honestly, there's nothing really magical about this article, but when I shared it, it did really well on social media. I think it's just a topic that people want to get more information about. But my takeaway from this article is something that you won't hear me say a lot. I'll say it on occasion. If you are over 50 and you're looking to make a pivot, a shift in the kind of work that you are doing, you are probably going to be better off paying somebody to help you write your resume, to position yourself for that pivot, because I don't think that you can accurately do it. You need somebody outside of the situation to look at your skills and qualifications more objectively. And I think, that doesn't mean that you don't do the research. You have to understand what skills you need and what you need to highlight in your conversation with the resume writer. But you absolutely are going to have to do, it's going to be that much harder for you to write it yourself. And that was actually my takeaway. Some of the stories in here mentioned hiring a professional resume writer, hiring a coach, just being able to look at your transition more objectively, which is very hard to do when you're over 50. And I think that is why I'm making that recommendation. The next article, again, did really well on social media, and I think it's a really important topic, how to follow up with someone who's not getting back to you. Who hasn't had that problem? Raise your hand if you haven't had that problem. Everybody has that problem. I have that problem. People are inundated with email messages and LinkedIn messages and LinkedIn invitations to connect. So just because they don't get back to you after you send them one email or a request for something doesn't mean they're not interested. It doesn't mean they're blowing you off. It doesn't mean anything other than they haven't gotten back to you yet. So your job is to make the message more compelling, clearer, concise, less threatening for them. And so many of those topics are talked about in this article on Harvard Business Review about how to follow back. So one of the things they suggest, and I don't think a lot of people pay a lot of attention to this, is the subject line of your message. So you send, if you sent a message 2 weeks ago and they haven't responded to you, change the subject line of the message and forward that new message along. Say something like, I sent you, it's been a couple of weeks since I sent my message, and I'm thinking it may have gotten lost in your inbox. I'm forwarding you the message again to bring this to your attention, and I hope that you have a minute or two to respond. All right, so there you go. But you give it a new shiny subject line that is something more enticing, and you'll go read that article on Harvard Business Review so you can see some of the suggestions that they give. In case you haven't heard, maybe you've been living under a rock, maybe you didn't get the LinkedIn email. The LinkedIn has announced that they're making 3 major changes, and they're starting to roll those out now. One is the cover story is a video introduction. 2 is the ability, and you may already all have this, the ability to clearly define your pronouns, whether it's he, she, they, whatever it is, and then creator mode, which gives you the opportunity to be more of a freelancer, which can be good for job search too, because it gives a little bit more time and attention to the hashtags that you follow or talk about stuff. So if you were an accountant and you were in the marketplace for an accounting job and you turned on creator mode, then one of the hashtags that you could enter, you should be following is a hashtag for accounting. That shows what your area of interest is. So you can have 3 to 5 hashtags there highlighted. It's also going to give you the ability to highlight the services you offer. And for a job seeker, the services you offer are the skill sets that are in demand. So in accounting, it could be month end, it could be mergers and acquisitions, it could be whatever, financial analysis, it could be month end, did I already say that? Anyway, you'd list those skill sets that you'd want to highlight, and those also would appear up top near the part of your LinkedIn profile. So as these new features get rolling out, I encourage you to experiment and try them. You've got nothing to lose. You can always turn it off if it doesn't work or people are calling you about weird stuff, but it's a nice way for you to adapt and embrace some of these new features. Will show people that you are more proactive in your job search, that you're savvy. The cover story is a video introduction, and let me just tell you this, it should not be your pitch. I don't want, it's so uninviting to listen to somebody say, I'm a nanotechnologist with 10 years of experience and I'm really good at doing this, and this, hire me. That's not what I believe a good cover story would be. A cover story would be an example of a time where you were successful. As a nanotechnologist, I was able to do this, and this, and you go through and tell your a star story, and then you can say, if you have a problem like this that you need solved, or you need somebody to come in and advise you on problems like this, please contact me. So it's a different spin. I want it to be results oriented. I don't want it to be a blah, blah, blah about you pitching yourself. That, first of all, is not really comfortable for you. And second of all, it's not really enticing for the people to watch. So as that gets rolling out, your cover story, think about how you want to do that. Okay, now, were there any questions that you all had about any of these articles so far this week? Was there one that you liked more than the others? I'm going to sort of put that out there and keep moving right along. The next article I shared was actually not really an article. It was a link to a post by Marie Zimenoff, who is the leader of Career Thought Leaders. And for anybody who is in the career space, if you are a resume writer or a job search coach or anything to do a career coach of any kind, you really need to be following Marie Zimenoff. She's doing amazing work. And one of the things, and what I'm sharing here is helpful for not just career coaches, but for job seekers as well. It's a digital brand management checklist. And so it walks you through the different things that, if you're serious about managing your digital brand, which we all should be, monthly activities, weekly activities, and daily activities. So it's a nice checklist that is is very helpful, especially for those that are interested in getting better control over their digital brand, which really is, what are you sharing on social media? That could be LinkedIn, it could be Facebook, it could be Twitter, it could be all of them. The next article was about interviewing, and so every couple of days or so, the LinkedIn editors compile and bring together articles around a certain topic. And so this was called Want a Job, Ask the Right Interview Questions. And so what they've done is pulled a bunch of posts by different experts and people on LinkedIn and said, hey, these are articles that have to do with asking the right interview questions. So there are a bunch of different good people there that are sharing information on interview questions for you to ask. And you might meet some new people or learn some new things. So it's a sort of a roundup of articles, of posts on LinkedIn. The last article that I shared, oh, is this the last one? Almost the last article I shared, was 9 trends that will shape work in 2021 and beyond. Again, it's by Harvard Business Review. Really, really important thing. And I share these trends because I want you all who have this time to breathe. You're not engrossed in the work that you are doing. You have a little bit of time to stick your head up and understand what's happening in the world of work around you. These trends will impact almost every industry across every company in the country. It's just a matter of time as to when. But things like shift from managing the employee experience to managing life experience. So this talks about how managers and companies have to be more empathetic to what their employees are going through. It's not just being empathetic to their work situation, it's being empathetic to the whole life situation. And that can be, pandemic, that could be birth of a child, that could be a dying parent, it could be lots of different things. And companies really some companies are better at doing this than others, but the ones that are good at doing that have more engaged, loyal employees who are willing to do more and perform better. More companies will adopt a stances of current or societal political debates. We're starting to see that with Coca-Cola and with Delta and how they're doing that. The gender wage gap will continue to increase. We talked about this at the very beginning of this live, that the gender wage gap is a huge problem, and we have to do what we can do to manage that for ourselves. New regulations will limit employee monitoring. Some employers, I don't know if you were aware of this, some employers made their employees, while they were home, keep their camera on all day long so they could monitor them. That's just crazy. Anyway, stuff like that is going to be problematic for companies. Flexibility will shift from location to time. So we've been working sort of flexible from home, and we were calling that flexible work, but we're also seeing some employers start to say, you know what, we realize we can't make everybody work 8 to 5, nor should we. So we're going to start giving people flexibility with when they book their hours to work. Again, long overdue, glad to see that. Leading companies will make bulk purchases of COVID vaccine for employees. Interesting. So if you want your employees to come back and you can't really mandate that they get vaccinated, you can at least say, hey, we've got a supply of vaccine here, come on in and get it. We'll see what happens with that. Mental health support is the new normal. It's about time. We need more companies to be supplying mental health. Employers will look to rent talent to fill skills gap. So, and this is one of the other things that I think we should all be paying attention to. As the economy starts to come back to life, more and more companies are going to be looking to hire people, right? So if they can't find what they're looking for, what this is suggesting is that they might bring in a temporary or a contractor to fill that skills gap until they can find their own person, or maybe they just don't need that person long term. It's just a short term project. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more jobs that are contract in nature rather than permanent, or whatever we want to call that, regular jobs, because it's less risky for companies, especially companies that are not sure exactly what their needs in the future are going to be. One of the safest ways for them to get increased headcount, get the work done without the long-term commitment, is to bring them in on a contracted basis. So That's not a bad thing for you, actually. It can be very good. It gives you a chance to check out the company as a contractor rather than a full-time employee, giving you that freedom and flexibility to say, you know what, not this job stinks, or I don't like the way this company is run, so I'm out of here, without it being a big deal. As big a deal. States will compete to attract individual talent because different states have different policies around COVID and working remotely. We're going to see states and possibly even countries say, hey, we're the best place to work. Come work for us in our state. So we'll see how that works. That was 9 trends that will shape work in 2021 and beyond. That's my digest of that, but I really want you to spend some time and understand these and the ones that might be most applicable to you right up front. And the last article is more of an informational kind of thing. Are any of you using Slack? I use Slack. Slack is usually a project team will use Slack to communicate, so they're not on email. We see a lot of inter-office communication being done on Slack instead of email, so that email is just reserved for important communication, not day-to-day or little tiny problems, because it's so hard to manage that email problem. So what this article finds is what this article reports is that Slack is going to give people the opportunity to connect with, email, correspond with, message people who are outside of your immediate group. So if there is somebody that I've always wanted to meet and they've been blowing me off on LinkedIn and they're not responding to my email or whatever, I might be able to message them on Slack instead. So it just gives people a third way to potentially engage with you, communicate with you, or for you to have another way to communicate with people who've been blowing you off. So that's happening on Slack. If you're not familiar with Slack, I would highly recommend that you become familiar. It's a free app. It's hard to just test it without using it in some context, but a lot of companies are using it. I know that at the university I worked in was using it to communicate with their students and with teams. So it's a great way to communicate outside of email. And it might just give you another way to connect with somebody that you've always wanted to meet. They, of course, have to accept your invitation just like they would on LinkedIn. You don't automatically just get to bombard people with messages. They have to accept your invitation to be connected through Slack. But just another way that we might potentially see communication happening. Okay, so those are all of the, oh good, cool, Wanda. Those were the most important articles that I shared this week, and I hope that you found some of them helpful. I'm always on the lookout for new trends and what's happening and how we can get better at this thing and take control. We can't continue to be at the whim and mercy of our employer because oftentimes, or our next employer, because oftentimes their loyalty is not necessarily to us. Their loyalty is to making money. So we've got to do what we've got to do. Have a wonderful week. I don't have anything fun coming up this week to tell you about, but I want you to have a great week. Be good. Take care of yourselves. Get out there, meet some people, build some new relationships. And it was great chatting with you all today. Have a good one. Talk to you later.